Some of you might find that you don't wish to hear the views I have to express, because invariably they are not aligned with those of the majority. I do not always know why, but I can tell you this much. The views I form them after digesting as much information as I can on a particular issue, not headlines. I do not read and internalize headlines, and I often listen to hearings, read cases. Whatever I'm doing, I try to do it in full, because words take their color from their contexts. We've been going through a very rough time in the world. We've been going through a very rough time in Jamaica, because for some people, Jamaica is their world. They cannot see beyond these shores, and whatever they see happening on the outside, it is as if it is not a point of reference for anything at all. For me, they can be used as some kind of a guide. But unless every single thing in a society outside of this one is on all fours with ours, similar culture, similar ways of living, similar informality in the sector, similar struggles, then my mind doesn't allow me to take what goes on in another country and to apply it in a whole-scale way to mine. There must be some tweaking. We learn from others, but we don't just drop things into ours without understanding the nuances of the one in which we operate. I have been very clear in my head, and I have said it on this program from the start of the pandemic, that during the pandemic, however long it's going to last, and I had formed the view from the very first case we had here, as can be repeated by Francois, that I formed the view that it would be at least 2 years before a return to normalcy. Yeah? Now, the view I formed at the start of the pandemic is that the chief message out there should be the government's message. It's the government's message because the government is giving directions. It is managing this crisis. Every single country in the world. It's the Prime Minister. It's the Secretary of Health. It's whoever it is. It's the Chief Epidemiologist. It's the Chief Medical Officer. They front it. They crunch the numbers. They balance their competing interests. And they come to the nations and they tell the nations, this is where we are. And invariably they issue guidance on what is to happen. In order for people to hear the guidance, the message of the government must be the chief message out there during a pandemic. Take it however you want. This is the view that I held from the start of the pandemic, and I continue to hold it. People want to know what time the curfews are. They want to know what time the shopping days are. They want to know when the lockdown days are. They want to know when the vaccination blitz will be on. We give people those messages first and foremost to update them on what is going on. It has not been an easy job for any prime minister. Worse, a prime minister who has to manage some people who are prone to hypocrisy, some people who agree with a move when the move is taken, but just in case things start turning, they are at liberty to change their minds and to turn around and to chastise the prime minister for the move they agreed with when the prime minister made it. If that is not the locus classicus of hypocrisy, I don't know what is. Why do I say that? And this is why I continue to examine myself when I'm talking on the 2nd of September. I don't look back at things that took place on the 22nd of June and forget the things that were operating at the time and in my mind on the 22nd of June. But some of us do it so liberally, it is almost criminal. On the 22nd of June, Andrew Holness went to the Parliament. And Andrew Holness gave an update to the nation on where things were. Let's stay in the present tense. This is the 22nd of June. The Prime Minister was laying out the numbers for the nation. Here's Andrew Holness in Parliament, the 22nd of June, 2021.
Speaker, based on the latest report from this morning, Jamaica recorded 23 cases of COVID-19 yesterday. Our cumulative cases are now at 49,735, and sadly, 1,037 persons have died. I offer my condolences to all those who have lost family members, friends, and loved ones, and colleagues to this terrible pandemic. For all those who are in hospital fighting the virus, as well as others who are ill but not hospitalized, I pray for their speedy recovery. Madam Speaker, I use this opportunity to again thank our healthcare workers, our security forces, and all other frontline workers for all they continue to do to help the country through this pandemic. We owe them a debt of gratitude.
So on the 22nd of June, the Prime Minister told the Parliament there were 23 new cases on that day. He went on to chart, as he does at all of the press conferences and the reports to Parliament. He gives us some data on where things are with the hospital, the bed capacity, the occupancy levels, and so forth. Here's Andrew Holness, 22nd of June, 2021.
New cases. By April 2021, we went down to 6,234 new cases. And in May 2021, we reported 2,870 new cases. And so far, for June, we have recorded 1,141 new cases. In March, we had a high of 878 new cases in a day, with the lowest single day number being 239. Our daily average in March was 514 cases. In June 2021, Madam Speaker, we are so far averaging 54 cases per day. Madam Speaker, the graph that is now being displayed shows the number of persons who require hospitalization relative to our hospital bed capacity allocated to COVID-19. The black line shows the increases in bed capacity up to our current level of 700 beds. Madam Speaker, we have consistently allocated resources to ensure that we can treat persons who have become infected and developed the COVID-19 disease.
So, the Prime Minister told us there that on the 22nd of June, we had got to some new lows in terms of cases. We had some very highs in March, January, February, March, April, May, June. The numbers were moving in the right direction. They were not where we wanted to be, he kept saying, but they were moving in the right direction. There were about a little over 200 people in the hospital at that time. And we were at medium level risk at that time because of the hospitalized. But remember now, we'd increased our bed capacity to 700 plus. The Prime Minister kept addressing the nation. Here he is.
Our healthcare workers were stretched and stressed. And we don't want that to happen again. The next graph shows our positivity rate based on the more reliable PCR tests. Madam Speaker, the yellow area shows the daily positivity rate, which peaked at 42.5% on March 2021. Given the daily fluctuations in the positivity rate, we use the 7-day or 14-day moving averages to provide a more reliable indicator of the trend. And so you'll see two lines there, Madam Speaker. One is blue, and one we could call lavender. I don't know if I got those colors correct, or purple. But so one is the 7-day moving average, the other is the 14-day moving average, and both are showing the general trend heading downwards. So, Madam Speaker, both are showing a consistent downward trajectory, and we are now at approximately 7% positivity, both from the 14-day and the 7-day moving average.
Remember now, this is the 22nd of June 2021. The 14-day and the 7-day average had us with a positivity rate of 7%. So they had to watch this thing over a period of time, and we were just hovering by a 2 percentage point difference, hovering over where the World Health Organization said it would be safe for a country to open up fully if you got to below 5% positivity rate. We were at 7. We had 23 new cases in the 24 hours preceding the Prime Minister's address to the Parliament. We had the numbers trending down, and he spoke as well to what they call the R0. Here's the Prime Minister on that.
It's not yet being displayed, it's being displayed now. The reproductive rate represents the average number of persons that are infected by one infected person. The R0, as it is abbreviated, is showing a decline and is now at approximately 0.7%. You will recall, Madam Speaker, that the advice from our epidemiologists was that we need to maintain an R0 of below 1 for at least a six-week period. We have done so for 12 weeks.
So, 12 weeks, below 1, higher than the week count that was recommended. And on the basis of that, on the basis of the balance, on the basis of, yes, the lobbying from interest groups who have suffered because of the lockdown, the Prime Minister explained the effect of the lockdown on a number of sectors, to include education, to include entertainment sector, and why he felt, with the numbers trending down, though we were not where we want to be, and there are other things out there, why he was leaning to a bit of opening up with the balance that needs to be struck in a time like this.
Of our fight against COVID-19. It is not the end of the pandemic. It does mean that we can abandon all the protocols and throw caution to the wind. It means that we are now at a new phase where we can begin to consider other things. But it doesn't mean that we should abandon the measures totally or abandon the caution and care. Complacency cannot set into the country at this time.
He couldn't be clearer. It's a difficult place. We're balancing a lot. I listen to the man, I watch him, and he looks to me, I don't know if you know from Greek mythology, this figure called Janus. You have one side where you're smiling and one side where you're completely serious because you are in a complete state of schizophrenia. You know the reality economically, but you also know the reality in terms of health. And you're up on a time where the pressure is building because people have been locked down for over a year. The Prime Minister continued.
Expectation that there ought to be some recalibration and recrafting of the measures. Before I announce these new measures, I want to urge, as I did before, caution. This is not a time to become complacent. Indeed, as we move to the next phase of the management of the virus, we will have to be even more vigilant about observing the protocols and keeping ourselves and each other safe. We are not where we would have liked to be from a public health perspective. As I said earlier, our positivity rate is still higher than 5%. Only a small percentage of our population has been fully vaccinated. There are many new variants of concerns in other countries that are even more transmissible than those we have seen locally. As we allow additional activity, there is a risk of infections and hospitalizations could rise once more. The risk of a third wave is ever present, as we have seen in other countries. One of the risks that I want all Jamaicans to keep foremost in their minds is that if we have a significant spike over the summer, it could impact our ability to reopen schools to face-to-face learning in September.
What more? What more could a people want? A Prime Minister who, to my mind, he understood exactly where we were. He understood that there is a possible third wave coming because of what was happening elsewhere. But he also saw that we were on the verge of near social implosion because the society was locked down. Some sectors made not 1 cent during that lockdown. And he laid it all out. The numbers were moving in the right direction. They were trending down, except the positivity rate was at 7%. And here's a man who stood there balancing it all, telling us, as I believe that he understood it. You could literally read what was going on in his mind. Yes, special interest groups are lobbying him, but special interest groups must lobby because special interest groups know what their realities are. There's nothing bad about that. And even he, on the 1st of September, he stands there questioning himself, because like human tendencies, the moment things start to go downhill, we turn Lot's wife. The whole of we going to turn a pillar of salt. We are play a game of football. Ball pass down the flank. Man knows the ball going to come down the flank. Man supposed to go down the flank or collect the ball. Man is slow to move in to collect the ball. The ball goes out. And before man keeps playing the game, man turn around and all man has said to the man who pass the ball, Bridget, make you pass a bad ball there. What make you pass the ball? And he cannot get past the fact that the ball has been passed and the game has a number of minutes to run. So everywhere you turn, you have Lot's wife, and that's what the Prime Minister is now doing. Second guessing himself, even though in my mind and from my assessment, he gave the caution that was necessary to the nation on the 22nd of June when he opened sections of the country. Here is his last plea to the people through the Parliament on the 22nd of June.
But I believe that what the pandemic has done is to give the opportunity for us to discuss how do we all live together as a society, respecting each other's rights. And what the entertainment sector would know from this administration is that we respect their rights and we are going to support them by financial support as much as we can. We're going to give them policy support and we're going to give them legislative support. We're going to recognize them as big business, as legitimate business, as economic enterprises like any other economic enterprise, and give them the support. So Madam Speaker, when we talk about the value of the culture, it is not just mouth talk. That the output that comes out from the industry has significant economic value, and we are not seeing the true potential of it, primarily because, Madam Speaker, the way how things are just organized now. And it was for me a very useful experience having the interface. And we give the commitment that we will be working much closer with the industry to make it a strong and vibrant pillar of the Jamaican economy. I've tasked the Ministry of Culture, Gender and Entertainment.
I think the last clip I was searching for is the one where he repeated where we are. But in that one that was played, what you heard is a Prime Minister who is expressing to the country representations that were made to him by people in the entertainment sector, representing their value to the economy, which was priced at about 84.16 million. And they represented to the Prime Minister that they understood their role within the context of a pandemic, that they wouldn't do anything to sacrifice back to school because children had also suffered greatly during the course of the pandemic. On the basis of those representations, on the basis of the balancing of health and economic matters, the Prime Minister opened the door. In opening the door, he urged caution. He told us what we needed to do. We'd had 1 year of practice. Immediately after the Prime Minister spoke, the opposition leader, Mark Golding, and Mark Golding, I love Mark Golding's parliamentary style. I've said it here before. This is what Mark Golding said in reply to Andrew Holness's decision to open up the economy and to allow some small and large events. Here's opposition leader.
Existing protocols for
We're finding that opposition leader Mark Golding in just a moment. Until we find Mark Golding's clip, I'm telling you that at no point in time in Mark Golding's presentation did he express any disagreement with the decision of the Prime Minister to open up the sector. In fact, he welcomed it. Let's hear opposition leader.
I think that many people will be relieved to see and hear some easing of some of the restrictions under which all of us have been living for a very long time now. The adjustment of the curfew hours, I think it's effective July 1. I know many people will feel that that is overdue, but is very welcome. I want to say how much I appreciate the gestures that are being made towards the entertainment sector, which has been really very, very hard hit by this pandemic. Many of them, the practitioners, the people who depend on entertainment, and you've alluded to some of the different industries and subsectors that depend on it, from the fashion industry right round to security and so many other things, food and beverage. The idea of giving them a break with the 50% discount on some of the statutory fees that are payable in applying for events. Minister Mackenzie, I think you would have a role in that, and I think that's a very good thing. And of course, the waiver of the fees on certain rental of certain large facilities will also be very welcome.
So, do you know why the opposition leader didn't oppose the announcements by the Prime Minister then? Because speaking in the moment, Mark Golding, like many of us, we understood why some pressure needed to be released. This is the 22nd of June. And I'm talking to people who are looking back on the 1st of September, no, the 2nd of September, with 2020 spectacles. I am not speaking to you. Yeah? Because a lot of you in your own lives, when everything else is going wrong, what you do is look outside yourself and blame everybody else. And that is why you all come now to lay blame squarely at the feet of the Prime Minister for everything that has gone on. The Prime Minister himself is questioning himself and laying blame at his feet, because every one of us, when things go bad, there's a way in which we kind of crawl into ourselves. But you must go back and you must examine context and say, but I did this for a reason. The last clip I'll play for you is that Mark Golding himself, when he supported the Prime Minister's opening of the economy, he was fully understanding that there's a Delta variant in other parts of the world, but the nature of our economy was such that it's an open economy. There are more Jamaicans living outside of the country than living here. And he also emphasized this business of personal responsibility and the matter of the need for more vaccination. But within that context, when Mark Golding spoke for more than 10 minutes in the parliament, never once did he say, "You are making a wrong move, Prime Minister, in opening up this country on the 22nd of June. Here's Mark Golding.
Having said all that, Madam Speaker, the reality is that Jamaica is skating on very thin ice with this. We all know that resilience and a restoration of normalcy for the economy and for life in general depends on building up sufficient levels of immunity in the population so that COVID is no longer a threat to life and limb. We are lagging behind the rest of the region in our vaccination efforts. We are ranking, I think, worst in class, the most recent graph I saw, worst in class in the Western Hemisphere in terms of percentage of the population that have been vaccinated so far. So we are hoping and seeking to open things up a bit now when we're very, very vulnerable. And we can only hope that the individual personal responsibility that the Prime Minister has called for, and which I repeat as leader of the opposition, is indeed practiced by all. We've had over a year of practice. So lessons will have been learned. People are a bit more accustomed to living with not talking up in people's faces, wearing the masks and so on. And I would encourage everyone to continue to exercise that kind of discipline.
Mark Golding, opposition leader, speaking in the parliament immediately after Prime Minister Andrew Holness addressed the people in the parliament and explained that as at that date, we'd had a consistently low 14 and 7-day average positivity rate of 7%, hovering at 2 percentage points above the recommended WHO opening point. Every other indicator was trending down. Our bed occupancy was about 200 at that time. We were at medium risk. But there were other problems. The pressures socially were great, so that even Mark Golding could not bring himself to utter one word of discord in response to the Prime Minister's announcement. And you tell me now, when responsibility was begged of all of us, and some of us find money to go pay for fake COVID test and go party, and some of the party people represented that they knew what was supposed to be done and they could manage it and they would take the precaution. When we knew that a third wave was possible because it was coming in other countries, so all we were doing was postponing the inevitability. New Zealand locked down from when? And New Zealand had 1 case of Delta. New Zealand closed up tighter when they had the 1 case. And in no time, the locked up society had 500 and odd. Such is the nature of Delta. All that was asked of us is personal responsibility. And I want you to ask yourselves, as I have asked mine and I continue to do every single day, which is why I'm not afraid of the views I hold in the face of the majority who are 180 degrees away from me. Is it fair that if a year ago, 2 weeks ago, you held a particular position, that okay, this thing is all right? Is it fair that if things change and get to the negative, you should be at liberty to change your mind and start to flip on the person who made the decision? If you think that is fair, the person looking back at you in the mirror is what they call an absolute hypocrite.